Welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College 90.3 WHPC. Tower Talk Business Radio brings you conversations with the top business minds on Long Island and around the nation, including expert consultants and small business owners who have found success, but are also willing to share their top tips, failures, and give gritty, matter-of-fact advice based on their first-hand experience. And now, let's get down to business with Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the Nassau Community College Foundation.
Hello and welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the Nassau Community College Foundation. My name is Ray Schwetz, AVP of Business Services at NEFCU, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, CEO of Keeper of the Brand Marketing and Digital Agency, and we're focused on being the premier resource for business and entrepreneurship.
Ray and I bring you weekly advice, tips, tools, and services that help you grow your business. Plus, we interview the top business leaders in the industry. Ray, it's so great to be here with you for another week and a great show so that we can empower our audience.
Yes, same here.
So, a lot is going on. A lot is going on. So, I dislocated my knee. Ooh. I was in the obstacle race, and the first thing that I thought about was Dave O'Mackey, his quote, which is my success chat for the week.
Okay.
And he stated, "Your thoughts are the architect of your destiny." And I sat back and said, I can either say this is going to slow down my business, or I can get in the mindset of moving the company forward during my recovery.
Or you can watch a lot of daytime TV.
Or I can watch a lot of daytime TV, which I did. And since I did, Ray, all I saw was OJ all over the news. And I said, is it OJ or is it daytime law office, law shows or court shows? And I was like, oh my God, it's everywhere. And I just thought about today and the amazing guests we're going to have coming up soon.
Yes.
But I really wanted to find out from you, what do you do when, you get injured or you have a setback? How do you recover?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I listen to what the doctor tells me to do. Most of the time I don't listen.
Most of the time we don't.
Yes. I don't know if that's a man thing. I know for me it's a man thing. I just don't want to listen. I'm fine. I don't need any help. But no, if I, I dislocated my knee. Didn't dislocate my knee. I'm sorry. What's that, meniscus? That's around your knee. Okay, so I tore that, and I did exactly what they told me. I took the drugs they told me to take. I felt much better. I did watch a lot of daytime TV, and you know what? The whole OJ thing, I mean, really for me, that's just the media keeping it alive.
I think so.
That's all it is. I mean, people are fascinated if they have a celebrity who's once a transcendent, is that the right word for it, figure, in athletics, and a celebrity, and, then now not so much. And I think people are just fascinated by that.
I think so. And criminal justice, when it comes to TV, that's fascinating in itself. People really want to get into the mindset of some of these criminals, why they committed these crimes, how they committed. There's a show out there for everything.
Yes.
So it's very interesting.
And my wife is obsessed by them.
Really?
She's gone from what's that criminal show?
ID?
What's that? The one that's CSI? No, that's CSI.
Yeah.
Criminal Minds. So went from Criminal Minds to being scared straight, and now she's watching the shows by people on death row. So she's evolving, and I'm a little afraid of that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I caught myself watching American Greed a couple of times. I said, there's a lot going on here. A lot of action that you need to pick up the phone and call an attorney to bail you out.
Now, speaking of attorneys, so I can't think of anybody better to talk to today who's an attorney. Helping provide us with business empowerment today is our guest, Alan J Schwartz. He's principal and managing attorney for the law offices of Alan J Schwartz, PC. Now, Alan, his practice is general law, but he has an emphasis on aspects of criminal defense and related matters. Certainly goes back to our conversation. His offices provide a wide range of services for small and medium-sized businesses and organizations. He won the Best of Long Island in 2014. What year are we in? And Mr. Schwartz was named as one of the best lawyers on Long Island. He has served as a member of the Long Island Association Association for Small Business Counsel and on the advisory board of the First American Title Insurance Company of New York. He offers experience to other attorneys as part of the as a member of the Council Mentor program of the Nassau County Bar Association. And his spare time, he is an active supporter of Muscular Dystrophy Association and other charitable organizations. Mr. Schwartz is a magna cum laude graduate of Hofstra University and a graduate of St. John's University School of Law. So that's quite a bit. Alan, welcome.
Thank you. How are you, Ray?
All right. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you.
And he also has a great hobby, which maybe we could talk about later.
One of many.
I'm intrigued. Yes. I'm intrigued.
Yes, that's going to keep that's called the hook. It's going to keep everybody here. So, Alan, share with us a little bit about your family background and how you got started.
Family background was I always had lawyers in the family, primarily lawyers who were corporate, making obscene amounts of money and working obscene hours. I had one uncle in particular who went a different path and was both an accountant as well as an attorney, not because he was looking for the credentials like many people do today, but because I don't think he was really making a living in his either, so what he could do was handle your house closing in the morning and do your tax return in the afternoon. But he always let his family come first. He always enjoyed himself. He was always having a good time. He always drove some of the most interesting cars I'd ever seen, primarily because a lot of his clients couldn't afford to pay him, so they'd give him the car instead.
Oh, wow.
Things like classic Thunderbirds and so forth. But he became more of a role model for me because he was more interested in enjoying life than he was just seeing how much wealth he could accumulate. And as a result, growing up in a household with a father who was in advertising in Midtown and commuted his entire life, it became obvious to me I had to be my own boss. I did not want to commute on the Long Island Railroad or any place else on a daily basis.
I don't miss that.
And I made the decision that I really wanted to begin my legal career as an assistant DA, and then the question was going to be where. Because my feeling was 4 or 5 years of trying cases where life and liberty is at stake, everything else is just a matter of money. And I got very fortunate because in 1980, I was offered a job by Dennis Dillon at the Nassau DA's office. I seem to recall they hired approximately 10 of us out of over 3,000 applicants. And the reason that I chose Nassau, frankly, was because my wife at the time, who is still my wife now of almost 41 years, advised me we were buying a house in Plainview. That meant I wanted the Nassau DA's office, the shortest commute. And as they say, the rest was history.
And definitely best decision you've made.
Good things
so far.
To listen to the wife. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. This is Tower Talk Business Radio. We are here with Alan Schwartz. Alan, what inspired you to launch your law practice?
Well, I knew when I went into the DA's office that's what I wanted to do. And when I was first interviewed, the commitment was 4 years. I indicated I would stay 4 or 5. I had some cases I wanted to finish up. I ended up staying 4.5 years. And along with a friend who was also a young DA, we started a law practice together in 1985. By approximately 1992, we were up to 3 or 4 lawyers and a support staff of 5 or 6. I hated it. I loved it. My former partner hated it. He ended up walking out the door with a check and a typewriter, and I inherited the practice with all the assets and liabilities. Later that year, we moved it to Garden City. That's where we've been ever since, and we're now 12 lawyers and a support staff.
Now, Alan, what advice would you give someone today launching their law practice?
I think what's critical is to keep an open mind, but more importantly, find what you're passionate about. I've been practicing law now for 37 years. I don't plan on ever retiring. I teach on the law school level. I judge national mock trial competitions. The reason we have so many attorneys in the firm is they handle the things that I generate that don't really get me excited, whether it be matrimonial work, trust and estates, personal injury, all of which we can service people with reference to. We also have a very active residential real estate practice, which I enjoyed because as a young lawyer coming out of a DA's office, it seemed like invariably in the morning I was in court, in the afternoon we were doing back then sit-down contract signings, closings, and so forth. And it was nice because it kept things interesting and also kept cash flow.
Can you tell us something? Because obviously you've worked with many people. I'm sure there's some kind of crazy stories that you've been through. What
shocked you?
That's what I was getting to.
Very little shock after 37 years of practicing.
Yeah.
Something a little different than some of my colleagues in that I spend a lot of time trying to keep our cases out of the media, even though that's not necessarily to my best advantage. So that, for example, when we handled cases like the Flush the Johns cases with Kathleen Rice as the DA and the men who were accused of patronizing prostitutes, or the Long Island Railroad disability frauds claims that were in the Southern District in federal court.
Right.
We really try to make sure that our clients were not the ones that were seen being escorted out on Channel 12. We were not doing press conferences on the front steps of the courthouse. And so oftentimes that keeps us out of the media with some regularity. One notable time, most recently, I was unable to do that was we had the privilege and the pleasure of representing Anthony Cumia from the Opie and Anthony show. We couldn't avoid the publicity for several reasons, one of which is by the time I was retained, the media was already there. And the second thing was that since Anthony earns his living through the media, we had more media exposure than you could shake a stick at. We actually spent as much time dealing with the media as we did dealing with the courts.
So you're wearing more than one hat. You're handling the legal side, but also the crisis management PR side.
Oh, absolutely. Because today, I would say, it's hard to put a specific number on it, but whether it's DWIs or drug cases or domestic violence, we're working with therapists with a full panoply of experience and things that they can offer. And more often than not, it's a matter of coordinating any number of other professionals to have a coordinated defense.
Now, it's a family affair. Your firm, you work with family. So
Yes,
what's that
I do.
like?
It's kind of interesting, but it's a little different. And people ask all the time, what's it like working with your wife? Reva came to me out of corporate America and basically said, your firm is growing to the point where you really need an office manager. She formerly ran an international marine electronics company, and she has a business savvy and a technology background that I don't. So I'm pleased to say that we have an office manager that can rival any of the bigger firms, and she comes into it with a very different background and a very different expertise. It would probably be very different if we were both lawyers in the firm, but what we do there and our roles are completely different. So there's a lot of overlap, but there's a lot of distinction, and I really try to make sure that she handles what she handles and I handle what I handle. If you ask her, I think she would probably say to you that I'm an incredible lawyer, but given or left to my own devices, I probably wouldn't earn a living. She tries to make sure I get paid for what I do.
That's key. So the accounts payable, accounts receivable,
making sure the computer systems are working, making sure the staff is in on time, or as she would describe herself on occasion, the head zookeeper.
Yeah, I think I've heard her throw that term around. And it's funny because I think I feel the same way about my wife that you do. People say, well, I don't know if I could work with my spouse and be with them 24/7. I think I'd be all right with it. And it's because we have different disciplines. So I think we would serve each other well.
I think the only problem that occurs periodically is you are never really completely detached from work. And because we have such a heavy emphasis on criminal defense, we're on call 24/7 to begin with.
Right.
But on those rare occasions when we drive in together, sometimes I prefer to listen to the radio as opposed to being asked how my billing's going.
Good point.
She has a vested interest all
Very
around.
true. Absolutely.
All around.
What advice would you give to attorneys who are launching their own practices?
I think it's important for them to find a mentor, and again, as I said, to really be passionate about what they do. The same way it's important to be passionate about hobbies or family or whatever else it might be, because that's what keeps you coming back for more. It's one of the reasons that we always have interns and externs working with us, which is really a two-way street, because I find that by having the young people with us, it does create a lot of work, and it does create scheduling difficulties, but at the same time, having young people work with us who are excited about what we do causes us to be more excited, causes you to verbalize things that you would otherwise take for granted.
You are listening to Tower Talk Business Radio. Our guest today is Alan J Schwartz, Principal and Managing Attorney, the Law Office of Alan J Schwartz, PC. My name is Donyshia Boston-Hill, along with Ray Schwetz on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
She's kind of a big deal. Some people like to say it's only because of how she looks. She sticks her tongue out a lot. But there's just something about her that makes people do crazy things. like get tattoos of her face, or wait in line for hours just to say hi. Lil Bub is a 2-year-old cat, an Instagram celebrity with a following bigger than some 90s television stars. And it all started because she was adopted. You can't buy a best friend like Lil Bub, but you can adopt one. Help us save them all at bestfriends.org.
And welcome back to Tower Talk Business